Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to make some little placeholders for a table setting, and I'm going to do them with a Christmas theme. So I'm going to use Inkscape, and I've got the page open already, and you could do this with any cutting file, any shape that you can turn into a cutting file, but just for this particular tutorial I'm going to be using a dingbat font, and the font I'm going to be using is from here, dafont.com. So if you go to this website and then in the search box up here, if you type Christmas shapes, it will bring up this font, and this is the font that I'm going to use. You just need to download it and install it. I'm not going to show you how to do that. There are lots of videos on the internet or YouTube that will show you how to download and install fonts to your computer. So I'm going to get rid of that, and then say we're in Inkscape. I'm going to click on the text tool. I've already started to write the font name in there, but I'll just show you again. So I know it's called Christmas Shape, so if I start to type Christmas, it will bring up the font, and I want it on the biggest size, 0.144. Then I'm going to select the text icon. The first letter I'm going to use is a B, so I'm going to left click on my page once to get the cursor, and I'm just going to hit the B on my keyboard, and that will bring me up this bauble shape. I'm going to come up here and change it to inches so I know what size I'm working in, and it's just over 1 inch wide by 1.5 inch, just under 1.5 inches high. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to leave it at that, but you can set the size here, and I've showed you how to do that in previous videos. The first thing I'm going to do, because this is a font and we want the shape to open up in Canvas, so the first thing I'm going to do while it's selected is go to Path, Object to Path, and Path Union. And then down here you can see against the words fill, it says it's coloured black, and against stroke it says no. So I'm going to right click on the colour swatch here against fill and put remove fill, and don't worry, it's disappeared temporarily. But then I'm going to right click against the word stroke and I'm going to choose black. So that's given us a black stroke line, and that's just so that when it comes into Canvas you'll see it on your page. If you don't do that, they tend to come in as a very, very pale grey dashed line, and you can't always see them. So that's the first thing to do. Then while it's still selected, I'm going to right click and hit duplicate, and I'm going to drag my duplicate over to one side just for a minute. Now I want my placeholder to be around about 2 inches high by about 3 inches wide. So I'm going to select the rectangle icon, and I'm going to drag myself out a rectangle, hit the select icon to select it, going to come up here, the padlock's undone, so that means I can alter the width and height individually. So I'm going to change the width to 3 and hit enter on the keyboard, and I'm going to change the height to 4 and hit enter. I'm just going to bring this into the middle of the page so you can see it better. Again, you know, this isn't exactly, it doesn't have to be exact. You can do whatever you want. This is just how I'm doing it for the video. Now, what I want to place this circle in the middle of this rectangle, but I want a guideline. I don't just want to sit it there, I don't want to align it up like I would normally do, select both and go. In fact, I'll show you what I mean. So if I select that, hold my shift key down and select that, then go to the align icon up here, which brings up this box, and make sure you've got selection chosen here. That means you want to make the change based on the selection. So if I go centre and middle, it puts it right in the middle, and that's not how I want it. I want this bottom edge lined up with the middle of this shape. So what I'm going to do, if you come up here to the ruler that you see, and you've also got rulers down here as well, and this works either way. I'm going to left click up here and I'm going to drag, and it brings down this red guideline for me. I'm going to select my rectangle so I can see these arrows, and then if you hover at it, when you come away from this line it's blue, when you come near it it turns red, and that means you can move it. So I'm going to left click and drag this red line up so it runs through the middle of those arrows there. This isn't going to cut, this is just a visual thing for the screen. Now I want to select my bauble, and I'm going to use the up arrow on my keyboard, and I'm just going to bring it up until the bottom of the bauble slightly overlaps that line, and I'm going to zoom in now so you can hopefully see a little better. Now I'm going to select my bauble. You can see it overlaps here, because this effectively, this blue line is going to be where we would fold this card once it's cut. So I'm going to double click on this edit paths node. Sorry, I'm going to left click on the edit paths node and then click on the bauble, and that brings up all the nodes that make this shape. And what we want to do is get rid of any nodes that are below this blue line. So while all those nodes are exposed, if I just left click down here and drag an imaginary box just up to or slightly above that red line, it will select the nodes that it's caught within that imaginary box. Then we need to come up here and we want this fourth icon along. So if you've got your Inkscape set up the same as me, and again if you've not, go to my YouTube channel, go to the playlists tab and look for the Inkscape playlist, and I've shown you how to set your default settings so that all these icons appear the same as I use on my screen, and then you can follow along. So we want the fourth icon along, which is this one here. When you hover over it, it says break path of selected nodes. I'm going to click that, and then what it's hopefully going to have done is broken these nodes away. So if I now left click on this one here and move it down, you'll see it's broken them away. So I'm going to left click on this one that's blue, and then this time I'm going to hit this second icon, which is delete selected node, and it's got rid of it. Then I'm going to select this one, make that blue, and delete. This one I don't want to delete, I just need to bring it back up above this line. So I'm going to left click and drag it up just so it's about on the line. And then this one here I'm going to do the same. I'll zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so if I go back to this and come here, you can see now this one is below the line. So I want this one just on or above that line so it matches with that one. Now I'm going to zoom back out and select it. I'm going to hover over this blue line until it turns red, and I'm going to just move that one now back up there out of the way. So now if I zoom in, you should be able to see that I've got my bauble shape, but I've got a gap here, and this gap won't cut, and that's the bit that's going to hold this bauble onto the card when we put a fold along here. So it will cut out this rectangle shape, and it will follow this black line, and it will cut these like highlight sections, but this bit here between there and there will not cut, and that's the only bit that's going to keep that bit attached to this card, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to zoom back out. Now I'm going to drag an imaginary box around both of these, and I'm going to go to Object and Group, and I'm going to put that up there. And just while it's selected, if you look down here, it says that there's no fill, well it says unset against fill and unset against stroke, and that's no good. We want at least a stroke line. So if we right click on where it says unset against fill and click remove fill, so it says none, and then right click against the stroke and put black, and that should make it all black. And we're in normal view, so that's how we're looking at it. I'm just going to bring this one over here. This one's got a black stroke line, so we're okay there. So I'll just do another one. I'm going to deselect, so I've got nothing selected on my page. I'm going to left click on the text, left click once on my page, and this time I'm going to type the letter R, which is the holly. So again, before I do anything, I'm going to go path object to path, path union. Then while it's selected, I'm going to right click and hit duplicate and bring my duplicate along here. I'm going to come over to my rectangle box. I'm going to drag myself a box out again, select it, change this to inches, and again I'm going to make it 3 inches wide and 4 inches high. While it's still selected, I'm going to left click up here in the ruler, drag my line down, place it over the centre of those 2 arrows just as a guide again, select one of these hollies and bring it over. While it's selected, I'm not going to leave it there, but while it's selected I'm going to hold down my shift key on my keyboard and select my rectangle, come up here to my align icon, and I'm going to hit centre, and that just centres the holly to that rectangle. And then I'm going to left click on the page to deselect and then left click on the holly, and I'm going to use the up arrow on my keyboard just to bring the holly up a little bit more. And then I think what I'm going to do, while it's selected, I'm going to left click again to get the rotate handles, and I'm just going to rotate it ever so slightly. And then again, I want it up a little bit more, so I'm going to bring it up a bit more. And I'm going to zoom in so I can see a little bit better. I think that will look okay for now. So while I've got that selected, I'm going to left click on the node icon, and then when you'll notice you get a different cursor mark, and when you come and hover over your design, you'll kind of see a turquoise edge around it. I'm going to left click on it to select the nodes, and I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to view, display and outline so I can get a better view of the nodes. So again, we want to delete any of these nodes that are below this blue line. So I'm going to left click down here somewhere and just drag out an imaginary box until I get just to about or ever so slightly above that blue line, and that selects any of the nodes it's captured. I'm going to come over to this 4th icon and select it, and that's broken those nodes away from the rest of them. So now if I left click down here, I'm not so sure if that's done it, so I'm going to undo. So if I left click on this one and then hit delete, we'll see what happens. Nothing's happening, so I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to drag an imaginary box around those nodes and hit cut. And then this time you can see they've broken away. So while I've got this one selected here, it's blue, I'm going to hit delete. And I'm going to do the same on this one, the same on this one, and hit delete. What you can do, you can grab a few and hit delete. And I think that's looking okay. I'm just going to select to see what I'm left with. That actually doesn't look too bad. What I might do is get rid of this bit here. So I'm going to select this and go to path, break apart. That's not working, so we'll try object ungroup and path break apart. There you go, it's broken it apart now. And I just want to get that little bit there in the middle and delete it. And I think that looks okay. So I'm going to drag an imaginary box around those and just regroup them, object and group. Now, I can come to this line and drag it out of the way, put it back up there out of the way. Now, I'm not so sure if I've got a little bit there, so I'm going to zoom in. Yeah, I've got a little tiny bit there, so I'm going to select the design, path, break apart, and if it doesn't break apart, do object ungroup, and then I'm going to just drag a box until I can get that bit there and hit delete. And I think that looks okay. To drag an imaginary box around all this again now and go to object and group. And then I'm going to zoom back out to my page so you can see it. So I'm going to drag an imaginary box around both and do object group. Double check down here I've got a stroke and I haven't, so right click against fill, remove fill even though it says unset, right click against stroke and choose black, and then double check I've got one on there. No, I've got to fill and no stroke. If I go back to view, display and normal, I can see better. So I don't want to fill, I want to stroke, so I'm going to right click and remove that, and then again stroke, I'm going to right click and choose black. Now I'm going to save this file, so file, save as, I'm going to put it on my desktop, I'm going to give it a name, I'm just going to call it test.svg and click save. Now, I'm not going to close Inkscape, I'm just going to minimise it for a minute. So I've opened Canvas and I've chosen new project, and we're now going to go and find, or I'm going to go and find, the test SVG file that I just saved from Inkscape. So I'm going to come over here to the SVG icon and select it. Going to come down here to choose file. I know I put it on my desktop, so I'm going to find the file, and there it is, and click choose. And then it's told me that it's got it there, and I'm going to say OK. You may get a funny message here saying that some shape, like here, some shapes could not be converted. Don't worry about that, just click OK, and hopefully all your shapes will be on your page. Now, what I found, even though we grouped these designs together in Inkscape, they don't come in grouped in Canvas. So if I select that and move it, you'll see it's not attached to this bauble. So I'm just going to undo that so I can keep it in the right place. So I'm going to drag an imaginary box around those two and right click and hit group and wait for the software to group it. Okay, and I'm going to do the same with this, drag an imaginary box around both of those, right and group. Okay, and you know it's grouped now because it's just got one box around it, and when you move it, it moves on its own. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So I'm now going to put, you don't have to do this, you could just save your file in your Canvas projects and then download it, and then score a line along here, and after you've cut it, and you're good to go. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to utilise the new feature now that we've got in Canvas. I'm going to choose the path icon, left click and then hold the shift key down and drag a line out so it's in a, because I'm holding the shift key down, this will always be a straight line no matter which direction I pull it. So I'm going to bring it over here towards the edge and then double click to anchor it. While it's selected, I'm going to come to the properties box. I'm going to make it a cut line, but I'm going to also make it a dashed line. I'm going to put a small dash line in and then close the box down. Then I'm going to come back to the path icon, come over here again, left click, hold the shift key down, drag a line out, double click to anchor it, that also selects it, come to the properties box, cut line, come to the dash line and select the same dash line. And that's now made those two lines dashed. The rest will be a cut line anyway by default. If you select it, go to the properties box, it would either be a cut or a draw line. You might want to get into the habit of changing it just to cut line and that's it, and leave it, because by default you've automatically got a straight cut line. Now I'm going to drag an imaginary box around all of those, so the two dash lines and the actual shape itself. Right click and hit group, and that groups that. And I'm going to do the same on the holly. So I'm going to come down a little bit so it's in view, come to the path icon. I always like to start from the middle outwards to just find it easier. I'm going to come, this bit of holly looks as though it comes slightly lower than here, so I'm going to click just under this edge, hold my shift key down, drag my line out, double click, that also selects it, go to the properties box, make it a cut line but also make it a dash line, close the box down, come back to the path icon, do the same here, left click, hold the shift key down, double click to select it, go to the properties box, make it a cut line, make it a dash line. Now what you might want to do, because this is not definitely directly through the middle, while that's selected, hold your shift key down and select the other one. And if you can't get it, the easiest thing to do is move the card out of the way. Drag an imaginary box around both of these. And while they're both selected, you can see the blue. Come to Edit, Align, and we'll just align up the bottom edges. And then while they're both selected, right click and group, then bring this back over, select everything, edit, align, center, and edit, align, middle. Now that's not what we want, so we'll undo that. Okay, I'm going to bring this out of the way again. Okay, so while they're both selected, I'm going to right click and hit group. Okay, I'm going to drag this back over, drag an imaginary box around all of them, edit, align, center, and edit, align, middle. While everything's selected, I'm going to right click and, in fact I'm going to select everything, right click and hit group. Okay, there you go, it's a group now. Then you'd save it in here and download your file. So that's it really. You can do that with anything. You can do it with any shape at all. You can draw shapes in Inkscape and do this same thing, or you can bring previously made cutting files in and do this same technique. You just need some kind of an anchor point in the centre, and that's the bit you have to cut away. So I hope you found that helpful. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.